Introduction of the education. Education is a gradual process which brings positive change in human life and behavior. We can also define education as a process of acquiring knowledge through study or imparting the knowledge by way of instruction or practical procedure. It makes us aware of knowledge, skills, ethic that has been there in the old world, which we learn as it helps us to progress and develop further. It is the way of bringing desirable change into an individual's life. Education enlightens the person Education enlightens the person and society with better understanding of living with good knowledge and skills. It is the act or process of imparting or acquiring particular knowledge or skills as for a living. Education is a deliberate and systematic influence entered by the mature person upon the immature person through introduction, discipline, and harmonious development or physical, intellectual, aesthetic, social, and spiritual parts of human being. In simple words, all around development in drawing out the best in the child mind, body, and spirit is known as education. Education plays a great role in one's life. Every single letter in the word can be used to define its importance and clarify its meaning. E stands for enlargement of mind. D stands for discipline. U stands for universal outlook. C stands for character improvement. A stands for activities. T stands for trustworthy. I stands for ideation of God. O stands for omniscience. N stands for nice environment.
Types of education. There are mainly three types of education: uh, formal education, informal education, and non-formal education. First of all, formal education. Formal education means a structured and systematic form of learning. This is the education of a certain standard delivered to students by trained teachers. Some characteristics of formal education: school and other institutions are involved. It has a hierarchical structure. It is subject oriented. Certification or degrees are used to describe one's level of education. Uh, Informal education. Informal education means a general term for education that can occur outside of a structured curriculum. Uh, some characteristics of informal education: practical adult learning, diversity on methods and content, mobilize local resource, real life example of learning. mm, Non-formal education. Non-formal education means uh, it's imparted consciously and deliberately and systematically uh, implemented. Some characteristics of non-formal education: very long process, learning from experience, learning from home, learning from environment, and these or certificates may or may not be necessary in this type of education.
Why is education important for us? The purpose of education is to bring happiness in life and make a better society. Education enlightens a person's and society's thinking capacity and creates a better understanding between each other. To say education is important is an understatement. Education is a powerful medium to improve one's life. It is probably the most important tool to change one's life. Education certainly determines the quality of an individual's life and changes the way of thinking and decision making. Education breeds confidence, confidence breeds hope, hope breeds peace, by Confucius.
Through education, you can also better yourselves in other ways. You learn how to learn, how to think critically and find solutions to unexpected challenges. I remember we used to ask our teachers, why am I going to need algebra? Well, you may not have to solve for X to get a good job, to be a good parent, but you will need to think through tough problems. You'll need to think on your feet. You'll need to know how to gather facts and evaluate information. So Math teachers, you can tell your students that the president says they need algebra. Education also teaches you the value of discipline. That the greatest rewards come not from instant gratification, but from
The sound is gone.
it tells us that the goal in life is to be entertained. It says you can be famous just for being famous. Now, you get on a reality show, don't know what you've done. Suddenly you're famous. But that's not going to lead to lasting, sustained achievement. And finally, with the right education, both at home and at school, you can learn how to be a better human being. For when you read a great story or you learn about an important moment in history, it helps you imagine what it would be like to walk in somebody else's shoes, to know their struggles. The success of our economy will depend on your skills, but the success of our community will depend on your ability to follow the golden rule. Treat others as you would like to be treated.
So, what does gaining education really mean? Can education only be gained by reading the books or writing something or listening to motivational speech? Absolutely not. Education is not limited to a certain topic, place, or a certain medium. Education for a human being starts from the day he or she is born. From childhood to adulthood and to adulthood to their old age, they gain education. A child starts to gain knowledge from his house, from the other way their parents and elders behave. Education not only teaches the ability to read and write but also about affects one's behavior. After the home comes the education from the school and onwards. From formal education in school and the society we learn to socialize. Education makes people literate, thus helping them to create their living rather than being dependent upon others. Above all of this, education is extremely important for having a decent standard of living. Almost every well paying job requires a degree or certification of some level, which is achieved through formal education.
Before learning about how formal education came into existence, let's see how the word education itself came into existence. Now, talking about the etymological meaning. The word education is derived from the Latin word educare, which means to bring up. Another Latin word, educare, which means to bring forth. Some theorists give a different explanation of word educate. They say e means out of and doct means to lead. That is, to educate means to lead forth or to extract out the best in human. The explanation presumes that all knowledge is inherent in children.
Now, the idea of formal education started around the world. Historically, modern schools were first established in ancient Egypt from about 3000 to 500 BC. But around the 16th century, the idea began to spread that childhood should be a time for learning and schools for children were real best places of learning. The idea and practice of universal compulsory public education developed gradually in Europe from the early 16th century on into the 19th. It was an idea that had many supporters who all had their own agendas concerning the lessons that children should learn. Education in Nepal was long based in homeschooling and gurukuls. The first formal school, Darbar High School, established by Janga Bahadur Rana in 1853, was intended for elite. The birth of Nepalese democracy in 1951 opened its classrooms to a more diverse population. Education in Nepal from the primary school to university level has been modeled from the very inception on the India system, which is turned the legacy of old British Raj present status of education. Over the last 20 years, Nepal has made a significant progress in education. The net enrollment rate in primary school has risen to 97%. However, the country still has many challenges to tackle.
Some of the challenges that the country has to tackle to provide quality education for all the people living in the country are poverty, social exclusion, geographical remoteness, migration, and gender bias. The pandemic has created the largest disruption of education system in history, affecting nearly 1.6 billion learners, especially the one from lower and lower middle class family, with which poverty being the main challenge in providing and gaining education all around the country. Social exclusion our society is based on caste and religious system. So social exclusion is also one of the major problem in developing a proper education system in the country. Geographical remoteness. Due to the remoteness of the Himalayan region, many due to the remoteness of the Himalayan region, people are not getting education as they should be. So the now talking about the migration, people from Himalayan and Tarai region migrate to hilly region for educational purposes. Thus the people, thus the gender gender bias. Our society, being a patriarchal society, has ideation that the that women should not women should not get education. And only men are allowed to read. Um, Now, some of the solutions for the above mentioned problems are better education infrastructure, financial support for poor family, raising awareness on the importance of the education, and making funding school a priority. Um, Better education infrastructure should be provided in order to in conclusion, education develops human personality, thoughts, and ability of dealing with others, and prepare people for the experiences. Thus, education is one of the most important thing and should be available to all. Thank you.
Thank you, Father.
Okay.